I just built the ultimate YouTube desk, perfect for talking heads, overhead angles, horizontal and vertical video, you name it, this desk is perfect for it, and it only cost me $500. In this video, I want to walk you through exactly how I did it, showing you all the parts you need and how to put them together. Also, for the sake of ethics, I want you to know this video is not paid or sponsored by any of the companies that make up the parts of this desk, but it is sponsored by Valerion, and I will tell you more about them soon. Also, I'll link to all the parts that you will need to build your own desk just like this one down in the video description. Now, every desk needs legs and a desktop, and the legs were fairly simple. I went on Amazon and found a standing desk frame, and specifically I was looking for a frame that would support a desktop that was 39 inches or longer because I was planning on purchasing a very large desktop, which we will talk about in just a second. After quite a bit of research, I settled on the Vivo standing desk frame that at the time of purchase retailed for approximately $200, but for Prime Day, it was on sale for $150. With the legs taken care of, the desktop was going to require a bit more work, and here's why. I've purchased 4 pre-built standing desks in my lifetime so far. One of them was from Uplift Desk. I bought one of their L-shaped desks. I use it for video editing. I love it. I have an entire video showing it off that I'll link to up in the corner and down in the video description. As for the other 3 pre-built standing desks, these are all Husky work tables that I bought from Home Depot that come with a crank to adjust their height up and down. These work extremely well, they're very well built, and most importantly, they are much cheaper than buying an electronic standing desk because there are no electronics. It's just a crank handle that you rotate to raise or lower the desk. Even better, these desktops are made of a high-quality butcher block material. I believe that it's Hevia or rubber wood, which also happens to be the material for all the desks that I have. It's great, sturdy, and most importantly, it isn't particle board, which you will see a lot of cheap standing desktops use online. That's what they're made of, which will only last for a few years at most, and then particle board inevitably breaks. But as much as I've loved these standing desks that I've owned, they all have one inherent issue that affected me as a filmmaker, and that is while they were quite long at 72 inches, the width was only 24 inches, which is very common for many desks. And the reason this was an issue is that I oftentimes film products straight down on a desk for YouTube or Instagram, etc. And it's really hard to use a desk at this width, especially for vertical videos. I needed something wider. Thankfully, my good friend and fellow YouTuber Chris Brockhurst had the answer, and it was to build a custom desk. And instead of using a normal sized tabletop or countertop, to instead purchase a kitchen island size countertop, which instead of being 72 by 24 inches, it would instead be a much wider 72 by 39 inches, giving me the width that I needed. Now, Chris used an IKEA Carlby countertop, which is quite popular. I've seen other people use this for desk, and I've actually bought one, tried it out, and then returned it. Because while the Carlby has a very nice wooden finish that looks great on camera, it actually only has a very thin layer of real wood on top, and underneath it's particle board, which can really affect the longevity of the desk. And more importantly, if you drill into the desk to mount it to legs, if you've ever used any IKEA furniture made of particle board, which pretty much all of it is, you will know that you can really only drill into it once. And if you ever need to make any modifications, or if you don't do things right, etc., you may as well just throw it away and start over again, because particle board is incredibly fragile and unforgiving. As an alternative, though, after doing some research, I opted to purchase a butcher block kitchen island from Lowe's. And side note, both Home Depot and Lowe's sell butcher block kitchen islands, and they each have a variety of different wood types. You have oak, acacia, etc., some of which are quite expensive. But the cheapest option, which I already had a lot of good experience with, is Hevia or rubber wood. Specifically, I bought a kitchen island from Lowe's, which ran for $310 at the time of purchase. Home Depot happened to have the same kitchen island just under their store name brand on sale for $50 cheaper, but they didn't have it in store. I would have to ship it. And my recommendation to you is to really attempt to purchase a desktop like this in person if you can, because you want to make sure that the wood is going to actually look good on camera. So go to the store and actually look through the different countertop options you have to buy checking them for any dents or chips in the wood, as well as any discoloration or a large amount of knots, etc. At my Lowe's, I had 4 different Hevia countertops to choose from, and the one that I chose, which I believe to be the best option, had one side with a decent amount of knots and another with very few that I knew would work great as a tabletop. Anyways, with the countertop picked up, be sure you bring someone with you to help. It is 100 pounds, but it's a very spread out 100 pounds, and it's a lot of weight to move. Now, onto one of the biggest differences between this countertop and the IKEA countertop, for example, is that this countertop is sold unfinished, meaning that you're going to need to seal the wood to protect it and bring out its natural color. To do this, I bought Watco Butcher Block Finishing Oil. They sell a couple different versions of this, some of them which are clear, while others offer darker stains, which it's great that you can customize things. I personally wanted a lighter colored tabletop, which can really make products stand out more on it, so I went with the clear finishing oil. I also bought some staining rags, which are essentially sponges with a rag exterior that worked very well for spreading out the sealant on the board. Remember, all this stuff is linked down in the video description. Lastly, I would recommend purchasing some sandpaper. You're going to want 80 grit as well as some 400 grit paper. Thankfully, the Butcher Block countertops come pre-sanded, but I will warn you now, the edges are quite sharp. I cut myself on one of them, and you're definitely going to want to sand the edges down. As far as the location for where to do this, I did in my parents' garage. You're going to want a location that's relatively dust-free, which makes the oil application process significantly easier, but you also want things to be well ventilated because this stuff is very strong smelling. I set up the tabletop on 2 sawhorses at my parents' house, and then my mom and I set out to sand down the edges of the tabletop with 80 grit sandpaper. You don't need to use the 80 grit sandpaper on the top of the surface either, just on the edges and corners. That said though, if your tabletop does have any damage or dents, this is your opportunity to remove those with the 80 grit sandpaper. Once that is done, take your 400 grit sandpaper and do some light sanding with the grain on the top, which will help the finishing oil soak more deeply into the wood, and then take a lightly damp cloth and wipe down the wood to remove any loose sawdust from it. After that, you are ready to oil the wood. Crack open the can and make sure that you stir it very well, then put on some rubber gloves. Take your staining towel, dip it into the oil, and apply it with the grain to the top and sides of the board. You don't have to use a ton, take it slow, and it will be covered. This is where it all starts to become worth it too. The color of the wood really starts to shine through, and it looks so good. Then go back over it again with just the staining cloth and no oil applied to pick up any extra globs of oil, and especially pay attention to any oil that has dripped over the edges of the table because that can stain it darker, so you're definitely going to want to wipe those up so they look even. It helps too if you have a light shining on the table, which you can really then look in the reflections for any bubbles that may be sticking up. Then put the lid back on your can of oil, put the staining pad into a Ziploc bag so it doesn't dry out. That way you can use it for the second coat, and then wait for 20 minutes and look over the wood for any excess oil that has pooled at the top and wipe that up. With that, you're down with round 1 of finishing the wood. Now you need to wait at least 6 hours for the oil to soak in and dry. I did the first coat in the morning and the second in the afternoon, but if you need to wait till the next day, that's fine too. For the second coat, you're going to notice that the tabletop is a bit sticky with oil, and the way you fix that is you're going to want to lightly sand the top and sides of the desktop again with that 400 grit sandpaper. In the footage I'm showing you, I used 320 grit sandpaper because that's all that I had at the time. And yes, I purchased round sandpaper because I thought we might be needing to use the electric sander, but because this wood was already pre-sanded from the factory, it didn't need it, and it was easier to just use the round sandpaper to sand it down by hand. I feel like I'm committing some sort of woodworking cardinal sin by using this type of sandpaper with my hands, but oh well. You're going to want to lightly sand with the grain to remove any roughness or stickiness from the wood on the top and sides. Rub your hand along the surface of the wood, and if you feel a rough spot, give it a bit of a sanding until the top and sides all feel smooth. With that done, it's time for the second coat of oil. So just like the first time, go back over it again along the grain, applying oil with the staining cloth until you have covered the surface of the desktop again, then wipe up any excess and leave it to dry again for at least 6 hours. Again, you know where we're going with this. Just like with all woodworking, you're going to need to sand it again, but it should require less sanding this time. You're just touching up any spots that feel rough, and if you notice any major discoloration to the wood because you've sanded it too much and removed some of the oil color, feel free to give it another round of oil and sanding. It's not going to hurt it. With that done, your desktop is now finished and ready to be attached to your standing desk legs. But before we do that, let me tell you about another massive studio upgrade that I've made because I've wanted to do something a bit more unique that would make the background of this video you're watching right now, as well as all of my future videos, significantly more dynamic. I could have done a green screen, or I've seen YouTubers mount TVs to make a very cool set of virtual windows that they can change to make look like any background. And as I was thinking about backgrounds like this, a company reached out and offered to sponsor this video. This company is called Valerion, and they make incredible cinema quality projectors that you can buy and use in your own home. Can you see where I'm going with this? I wanted a video background that I could not only change to whatever I wanted, I could also use it to watch movies with my family or even play video games if I needed to do some game testing, let's say for PC build guide research. That's what I'm gonna tell my wife. It's game testing for work. So Valerion sent me this, their Vision Master Pro 2 4K laser projector that will give you up to a 300-inch image that, most importantly for my purpose, has a 15,000:1 contrast ratio, which means that when I film myself and the projector is shining an image onto the background, the image looks real and lifelike with the correct contrast and detail that you would expect. Throw in some bonuses like a 240 Hz refresh rate, 3000 lumens of brightness, Dolby Vision, HDR10, and color coverage of 110% of the Rec 2020 color gamut, and this is easily one of the most color accurate projectors that you can get. Can you say color grading projector? That would be cool. Setup was also super easy for the Vision Master Pro 2 as well. It comes in this super protective foam case that you can use it to travel with if you want. I opted for a ceiling mount setup so I would have the projector up and out of the way in my studio. Then Valerion has a ton of different screen sizes and types, including indoor and outdoor options, permanent screens, portable screens. I opted for a motorized 120-inch screen, which, considering that my studio only has 8-foot ceilings, this was about as big as I felt comfortable going in a room of this size. And what's so great is that because the screen is motorized, my room is even more versatile now, because if I want to use a video background, easy. I just power on the projector and it automatically lowers the screen and I'm ready to film. But if I want a different background, I can just raise the screen and it's like it isn't even there. As a plus too, because I have white walls, I can also use this projector without a screen and it's still bright enough to look incredible. With features like built-in Wi-Fi 6E, Apple AirPlay 2, Chromecast and Miracast support, plus a 0.9 to 1.5:1 optical zoom lens, and ultra-wide and IMAX ratio support, this projector is also super easy to get any media playing on it that looks perfect. I'm super happy with this setup and excited for all the different background options I now have for my videos, plus the future capabilities to watch movies in here is going to be so fun. If you want to get your own Valerion Vision Master Pro 2 projector, check out the link down in the video description. I know that you are going to love it. Now, let's get the rest of this desk assembled. The legs should come with instructions as well as screws, which, side note by the way, you should know that most of these standing desk leg kits are built for tabletops that are only 1 inch thick, so the screws are not going to be super long. But if you want to make your desk even sturdier, because this butcher block countertop uses 1.5 inch thick wood, you can go to your local hardware store and match the size of the screw and just purchase a longer version of it if you want to. Then attaching the legs is rather simple. You want to put the desktop face down on the ground. I would recommend doing this on a soft surface of either carpet or a rug or a blanket, something to prevent scratching or denting the wood on top. Then measure multiple times to make sure that the legs are centered on the desktop. If you can, I actually recommend assembling the legs completely upside down on the tabletop and then doing all of the assembly steps except for screwing them into the wood. You can then take a pencil to mark where all these screw holes are going to be for the desk, which is going to make things much easier. Next, drill small pilot holes into the wood to prevent it from cracking whenever you put the screws in, and then you're ready to screw the legs into the desktop. With that, the last thing you need to do is flip the desktop over. I recommend getting a friend to help with this and lifting with the wood. Do not lift the desktop from the legs because that's going to put stress on all those screws, and you do not want your custom built desk falling apart, especially this close to the finish line. And with that done, your desktop is now ready for you to film with. And I have have to say, I love how this desktop looks. I love that it's not as shiny as other desks that I've used. I wanted a rather matte looking desktop that would not reflect a ton of light. And this is really perfect for filmmaking, in my opinion. Thanks for hanging out with me in this desk build. Remember, there are links in the video description to all the parts that I recommend purchasing, and feel free to leave me a comment if you have a question, etc. I will also link down in the description to my gear guide for filmmakers. It's going to show you all the equipment that I recommend you purchase and use for filmmaking. It's completely free. Thanks so much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you loved it, and have a great day.